That's where I'm so fortunate because what you're talking about is the path that the struggles that everyone deals with, right? On the path. You try to meditate, you follow an app, you follow a system,
Yeah,
maybe it works for a while, but life eventually is so powerful and so magnetic, it's stronger than our own meditation. So what we want is our own meditation to be the very bedrock of our life, and then everything else is kind of mitigated. The suffering that we constantly will experience throughout life is somewhat mitigated, and that foundation, that bedrock of meditation, should really be that powerful. So essentially, when you're battling with meditation and you have some practice and you're trying to focus on your breath, and things start working out, the system that you're following um, isn't quite working out that well. And so the system that we learned in the monastery that I was trained in Hawaii is Shum. And so Shum to me is, I mean, I'm biased, but I find that Shum is probably the greatest way of meditation that I know of. And I've tried and studied many other systems. And a lot of them really rely on a culture. You have to kind of join a group and in order to be involved, and that's actually really good, right? So some Hindu organizations, in order to get close to their teachers, you have to do selfless service, right? Like Swami Narayan and everything. And that's amazing, right? Because those people's lives are changed because they're enriched. But it's very exclusive. So a lot of people aren't ready to make those changes. They're not ready to join a group and just start worshiping like that. And that's fine. So for everyone else who isn't, well, and doesn't have the means to kind of change their entire culture, they need a systematic way to progressively get further and further inside themselves in
yeah,
meditation. And for me, that's Shum. So I teach Shum because I was trained in Shum, and um, and that's what I that's and so for my students who aren't able to kind of change their lives and start worshiping and things like that and doing selfless service, Shum has been their own selfless service towards themselves. And they're kind of nurturing and cleaning up themselves with Shum. And it takes a bit of dedication in the beginning, but for anyone else outside of the spectrum, um, meditating right now, having trouble, and then a thought takes them so far they lose it, we need to understand how vital it is to pay attention to our breathing. So and that's very common, right? We hear that all the time, like follow the breath, uh,
yeah,
watch the breath,
yeah,
observe it, realize that you're breathing, etc. It's one of the um, most common sought after beginning steps of meditation, because our breathing is the only thing in the present moment. So everything
absolutely.
else is in the past or the future, right? So it's like, yeah, why is the breath so damn important? Well, because when the only thing you're ever doing in any other moment is breathing, right? Anything that you think about, all of a sudden that's in the past. Anything that you want, all of a sudden that's in the future, and then that thought becomes a past
Yeah,
moment. Any step forward you take becomes in the past as soon as you lift the other foot and start walking in front of that one. It's just a moment of, it's a series of moments that are we're constantly losing, right? It's constantly trailing behind us. So the only thing to bring us right back into the present moment
it's breath.
is our breathing.
Yeah, yeah.
It's our breath.
I've
Our
got this.
breath is happening right now.
Yeah, yeah. No, sorry to cut you there. I've got this saying for myself. I remind myself breath and awareness, and that's just really when I'm in a not so good mood, or let's say I'm reactive. And as you just said it rightly, breath, breathing, and I remind myself breath and awareness. And then sometimes when I'm telling somebody else, like when they are in that sort of reactionary way. They're reacting too much. I'm like, breath and awareness, and I remind myself as well. So that's really good. You touched on that really, it's because that I find myself as well that that always helps me to gain back my alignment, as I call it. Not sure what the Shum word is.
Yeah.
But tell me a bit more about like Shum from top down, if you don't mind. It's like just to get an overview. What is Shum?
Well, I'll answer your previous question. The Shum word for that is na leaf. Na leaf means the continuity of meditation or experience from one meditation to the other. And that's part of that. Na leaf is part of that example I gave. You go in meditation, then you come out. So what we want is our steps of coming out to actually be closer and closer to our meditation as much as possible, so that when we stop meditating, we don't really make that far of a jump. And then we can go right back in the next day and like that. So the other question, what is Shum? Shum is a language designed by Shivaya Subramania Swami in the 70s, I think 1969 or 1970 in Switzerland. So it came, I say designed by, but it was a language that came out of my guru's guru. And basically, he found it by going inside of himself over and over again. And with this desire of wanting to teach his students meditation, right? But he had trouble with the English language and expressing different concepts that are very mystical and complicated to people trying to meditate, right? So he said, over the weeks and months of leading up to that moment, he's probably thinking, what's the tool? What's the next thing? How can I teach all these people at once? And then it came out of him, right? So he went into a process of meditation one day and then started to see the characters, the sounds, and the colors of these of parts of these like syllables, and he would break them down and then get characters, and then eventually they joined up and became words, and you have Shum, and you have a language with hundreds of characters, which about 36, I think, being the most important, and 18 characters being even more important.